Well, despite all those injuries that we did suffer during the course of today's episode, so far hasn't impacted us too much in the Bundesliga. We'll see today, though, how it goes, because it's our first taste of Champions League football away at both Celtic and Eintracht Frankfurt. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 75 of Rookie to Royalty here on Shaun Does FM with Jahn Regensburg. I hope you're doing well and coming today. Our first taste of Champions League football in this save, and also with Jahn Regensburg, we're away to play our first two games of the league phase. We've got Celtic, which hopefully will be quite winnable, as will Eintracht Frankfurt, again though away from home. So if you guys are looking forward to that coming up in today's episode, but it comes off the back of yesterday's one. We played our first two games of the Bundesliga season. Quite tough ones as well, away at Borussia Dortmund and at home to RB Leipzig. So if you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Off the back of that, we did have transfer deadline day, a quick run through of what happened there first. We did bring in that right winger that we threatened to for a little bit of extra squad depth, seeing as we can suffer some injuries at times there. In that position, Rick Nutters come in for an upfront fee. I'm pretty sure was only about 2.5 million, but rising to about 10 million overall. But he looks like a relatively promising Belgian, honestly. That potential I thought might be a little bit better, but a bit of extra squad depth there for a young player, just in case Lazar and Walden do pick up some injuries. But he's one of the guys not registered for the Champions League, so to be fair, you won't be seeing him too much for the next little while, I dare say, while we do focus on that league phase of the Champions League. That's one bit of business that we did on deadline day, albeit off the back of that, Thilo Haasman not too happy with his playing time here, and he's requested to be transferred. Unfortunately, Schalke have actually triggered his release clause of 4.7 million. He might be on the way out, albeit that would not go through until January. So that might be something we need to think about going into the mid-season transfer window, if still here at Jahn Regensburg, which to be fair, we probably will be off the back of that contract that we did sign a couple of days ago. So that's what we've done transfer-wise off the back of yesterday's episode around deadline day, and also since then, thankfully, all those injuries we suffered haven't hurt us too badly off the back of those tough first two games that we did play, backed up that draw there against Leipzig with a 3-1 win away at Hoffenheim. Goals there in the first half to Muller and Lazar and Lewis Walden, just getting one off the back of a Closet goal, which made things interesting. There were 15 minutes to go at 2-1, but thankfully got our 2-goal lead back relatively quickly and pick up 3 points there on the road, and backed it up with a 2-1 win at that stage over an unbeaten Union Berlin team, coming back from an early Docky goal thanks to Rivera and also Lucchini early in the second half. So 2 wins from 2 off the back of yesterday's episode, all against teams you'd probably expect us to pick up results against. It does back up those decent results that we got there yesterday against some stronger opposition, and it does mean that we're unbeaten so far in the Bundesliga, sitting in third, but 2 other teams have gone perfect so far. That's Eintracht Frankfurt and Cologne, so 2 points behind them. It does mean that second game in today's episode, even though that will be in the Champions League, that could be quite tasty. Eintracht Frankfurt away from home, and also in between those Champions League games, we've got a derby away at Augsburg. But to be fair, those guys not doing too well, even though they've still got Thomas Frank in charge after he joined them at the start of last season. But today, we're going to focus on the Champions League. Before then, an update on our injury centre, because it's got very heavily populated during the course of yesterday's episode, especially off the back of that Borussia Dortmund game. Thankfully, have had quite a few players who have come back from some recent injuries. Biara, Rivera, Veloso, Fernandes, as well as La Rosa and Hansen. They are all back, albeit some of them not quite recommended for a full game, but still a couple who hopefully might be back in time for that local Champions League game against Eintracht Frankfurt. Quim Jimenez is still out for 49 days with a twisted ankle. Ballerini 1 to 6 days with that fractured toe. Those two of course got injured in that Dortmund game, so they might be back in time for that one where we take on Frankfurt. And definitely Nuno Lazar should be. A pull groin is out for 1 day, so currently still dealing with a couple of injuries, but thankfully not nearly as bad as it was during those last couple of games that I did play in the Bundesliga off camera. And thankfully, off the back of a double-header coming up against Eintracht Frankfurt, an international break, which might actually be quite well timed with those injuries that we are suffering. But it's time for us now to get stuck into the Champions League this season. Here are all the teams who are in the competition. We are one of the lower ranked teams, of course, with our coefficient only having taken part in the Conference League last year, and this being our third season up in the top flight. So it does mean the teams we're taking on are actually quite good this season. So first up, I'm quite hopeful we can pick up a win away at Celtic. Haven't got the Scottish League loaded up here in the save, so it does mean that they're managerless and not too sure just how good their squad will be. Their key player is Liam Hamilton, but of course in this save we've got a tribute masking on, but he does look like quite a handy homegrown talent there, does that key player out of Celtic. But really, this should be a team that we can beat, especially if they're only managing something like a draw at home in the derby against Rangers. So you'd like to think here this is one of our bankers, even though it is away from home, because later on in this competition it does get a whole lot tougher off the back of today's episode. In fact, I've just clicked the wrong thing there. Let's sort that out. Get back over here. We want the Champions League, not the Conference League. Still not too sure why that's popped up. But the likes of Real Madrid, Arsenal, Atletico, that's when things will get tough. So hopefully can pick up some good results here to start off our Champions League campaign, as well as before that potentially tricky derby against top of the table Eintracht Frankfurt. So hopefully a good start here to the Champions League. We are going for this first game with the 4-2-3-1 seeing as the clear-cut chances it clearly outranks the 4-3-3, and against a team like Celtic, probably a good idea, go a bit more attacking anyway. So fingers crossed here, we can do a decent job first up here in the Champions League. As I said, really, on paper, one of our easier fixtures. So fingers crossed we can get the job done here first up away from home. Now, a couple of changes down that right-hand side. Jimenez at right back, obviously, with the injury to our other right back in Ballerini. Also, Muller at right wing. Our usual right wing options are not quite match fit. We've got Walden down there on the bench. Unfortunately, Lazar, that little injury. So going to try Rene Muller here at right wing and Rivera up top, seeing as he's had a pretty good start to life here at Jahn Regensburg. Also, our Buster and ball wing midfield with the injuries we've been copping there to our regular ball wing midfielders. Of course, Quim Himney is out with that injury he picked up in the Dortmund game, and La Rosa has just come back, only recommended for 45 minutes. So something a bit different there. Someone who we did sign as a new backup there to Ruslan at centre back, but thankfully can do a job in defensive midfield. So we'll try him out there, seeing as he actually on paper looks a little bit better than someone like Mensa, who is on the bench. I think indeed he is. I think somewhere there. Maybe I left him off or even didn't register him for this competition. Got a lot of players these days in our Jahn Regensburg team, seeing as in the Bundesliga, you don't really have to worry about registration numbers. That's one of the big advantages here of managing in Germany. The Champions League, a little bit tougher, but thankfully this season we do have our 4 homegrown players. Max Meyer is still registered for this competition because Dama Kamara, while being homegrown club, is not 22 yet, so didn't actually have to register him. So Max Meyer does still keep his spot, but thankfully first highlight here might be in our favour of throwing inside of the final third. Hawkera back there to Dawn, and now Lucchini will take on the shot, drills that one there into the bottom left corner, and we take an early 1-0 lead. So kind of hopeful here we can put a bit of a schooling on Celtic, despite the fact that we're away from home in our Champions League debut. Of course, last season made our European debut, did a pretty good job making our way through to the semi-finals of the Conference League before, unfortunately, we clashed with the eventual winners in Newcastle United with their Premier League money. Celtic first up, definitely a step up in terms of competition here in the Champions League, but this game did look like one of the more winnable, and thankfully going off here to a decent start. If we can actually grab a bit here of a cushion early in this game, as we nearly do there. Lucchini on the attack. That one though comes off the woodwork. If we can grab a cushion goal early, might be a chance for us here to give some bench players some game time early and make sure these guys should be fit for Eintracht Frankfurt away, as well, of course, as the derby when we take on Augsburg. Again, Lucchini on the attack there, this time from a free kick at the far post. Not too sure there why he's hitting that one, being a little bit of a midget compared to our centre-backs, but that one does go over the bar well and truly on the front foot early here in this game. But unfortunately, just the one shot on target does mean that if Celtic do launch an attack, they could actually find a way back into this game. And also both our centre-backs, they've picked up yellow cards. Might be a few changes coming there at half-time, as now Ruslan tries to hit that one home at the near post, but unfortunately that one just on the wrong side of the woodwork, and that'll be the last action of the first half. Definitely been the better team here in this game, but only a 1-goal lead ideally might have made that 2. Now Alfbusser, we can pull back there for Ruslan off the back of signing him. We'll bring on the Masterton or Cuervo, and it will be La Rosa coming on for Ruslan, coming back from injury, only recommended for 45 minutes. So I think those will be our 2 subs here at halftime. We'll save up the rest. As I said, would be quite nice to make a few in the second half if we could grab a nice early goal, and it looks like we'll pick up all 3 points from this game, because currently it's not quite the case. Just that 1 goal in that first half and get back to business in the Bundesliga off the back of this one, because a hot start would be quite nice just in case. We do need to focus on this Champions League a little bit later on, but unfortunately nothing doing there from that early corner in the second half. We do keep the ball though and play it back to him, and he's now Dawn starts to make his way forward. A tackle on him there from Hamilton, thankfully not quite quick enough, and we keep the ball. We float that one far post there for Rene Miller at right wing. Honestly, so far this season, he's been a little bit poor. Rivera is looking like a really good signing as that up-and-coming striker in behind him. But without injuries for this one, we've tried Miller at right wing, and thankfully, he scores a goal through his head, which usually is something that we don't do. I'm pretty sure I've got load crosses turned on here with this tactic, so not too sure what that was, but thankfully we put that one away and grab a cushion goal with 35 minutes left. So hopefully now we can grab one more and put these guys away. A short free kick, albeit I think that one should have gone to Muller. Outbusser there might have got a little bit too keen and broken up there. A little bit of an OP set piece, the old short one that does work quite well in FM24. Thankfully, we are still on the attack. Dawn squares that one. Rivera can't quite get a shot off and was offside as well, so that highlight there, a little bit of a waste of time. As I said, big outbusser there on a stuffed up one of our free kick routines, but still, it's only 2-0. But Celtic, not up to a heck of a lot, so I think here we'll make some subs with the derby in mind against Augsburg, and also that next Champions League clash against Eintracht Frankfurt. So Vargas will come on there at right back for Jimenez. Hopefully our new Italian signing might be back in time for that Champions League game next week. And also Veloso at right wing for Rene Miller, who might be starting in the next Champions League game as well. But now a free kick here to Celtic. They float that one far post. Thankfully, Batata can claim that. Still one more sub that we can use in this game. But we've got 25 minutes left. We'll hold off and see who we might need to take off. Interesting stuff here. Celtic do get on the ball from that clearance from Batata. Nice work there from Bernardo cutting inside, but thankfully that one goes safely over the bar. So again, a little bit there of a nothing highlighted now at the 69-minute mark. Nice time for us here to make our final sub. Fabrizio Lucchini playing well, got our goal, drops down to a red heart. Adama Kamara can come on for him last season. Did a brilliant job in Europe in that Conference League this season. Of course, a bit of a big step up as now a few players drop down to red hearts. To say a few, it's Louis Hawkera. Hopefully can put this one to bed though and make it 3-0. Kamara on the attack, tries to curve that one bottom right corner, but can't quite hit the target. So with 15 minutes left, we've still only got a 2-0 lead, which XG wise is about right, but highlight wise we have looked pretty good. So to play things safe here, we'll start to time waste just a little bit differently. Don't think Celtic have offered too much here in terms of attack, so fingers crossed just going a bit more defensive might help late on in this game. A free kick which Rivera will try and put top right corner. Fernandez will poke that one home, albeit I think he might have there just been a little bit offside. We'll wait and see if that might steal this result. Unfortunately it will not, because VAR has ruled that out. So unfortunately that free kick doesn't quite work, as the Fernandez there is just ever so slightly offside. As Hellas Verona are thumping Lille. Not too sure if the new Real Sociedad manager will be too happy with that, seeing as that's the club that he did leave there, but of course did get a massive pay rise, unlike what we were offered. Still a bit salty about that one there. Could be in San Sebastian, especially because I watched a new season of Somebody Feeds Phil last night, and the food over there looked really blimmin' nice. I'm a bit disappointed there we didn't get that job, but a bit more time wasting here as we make our way into 4 minutes of added time. A late corner here to Celtic. Let's see if they can score, but to be fair at this stage, hopefully it will be a case of too little too late. Some nice short passing as they eventually get a shot off there and it goes over the bar. That should wrap things up, you'd think, off the back of that, and indeed it does. We debut in the Champions League with a 2-0 win. Overall, it was pretty comfy. Celtic had a few shots, but in the end, none on target. We're able to take off there some of our key players with about a half hour left there in that second half. So pretty happy with how that one went. Not super dominant, but in the Champions League, we'll take 3 points away from home any day of the week, considering that we didn't pick up the Conference League last season. This is a bit of a step up, but that was a game that I definitely wanted to win, and we've got the job done. Fingers crossed now we can go back to Germany and win the derby before we come back and take on Eintracht Frankfurt again in the Champions League. And here are the highlights from a potential Bundesliga banana skin for us here away from home in the derby, but thankfully got off to a good start there halfway through the first half, a penalty which Rivera did put away, and then some lovely play there. Rivera actually picking up the assist as Lazar chips the goalkeeper, and then Lazar pops up with the assist as Pavicic came in for Ruslan in this game and made it 3-0, and thankfully we held on in the second half despite quite a few subs there at halftime with that 3-0 lead. So thankfully we rotated a little bit for that game. You'll see it there. Starting lineup wasn't too bad, but we were able to make quite a few subs there early on with that 3-0 lead at halftime. Thankfully it pays off and we pick up a 3-0 win in our derby here at Jahn Regensburg. So it does actually mean we've gone top of the table. Eintracht Frankfurt, they dropped some points. They took on Bayern Munich and lost to those guys even though they were at home. So fingers crossed that might allow us now to pick up a win against them in this upcoming Champions League game. And also, of course, Cologne, they drew with Wolfsburg. So we are now on top of the Bundesliga, albeit joint there with Cologne, 1 point clear of Bayern, Schalke, and Eintracht Frankfurt. So a very good start here the Bundesliga season, considering already played Dortmund and RB Leipzig. Let's see if we can do something decent here against this Eintracht Frankfurt team, who up until that Bayern game have been in a pretty good patch of form. They picked up a 2-0 win over Monaco on the opening day of the Champions League, and before then, a perfect start to the Bundesliga season, albeit not too sure if they'd taken on too many decent teams by that stage. So fingers crossed there can hand them back-to-back defeats at home again. We're going to go with our 4-2-3-1. It does seem to be working, albeit for this game, the analysts suggest the formations are a little bit more even than they were for that Celtic one. We'll check on them here, and you'll see that the 4-2-3-1, not much difference between that and the 4-3-3. In fact, minutes-wise, probably the 4-3-3 might be the formation that we should go with, but we'll see here how our informed 4-2-3-1 does go. And obviously, we've got these guys coming up in the Bundesliga off the back of this game. If we need to change things, I'll take that into account when I take them on off camera in that Bundesliga game before the international break. But thankfully, our injury centre is completely clean now, but a few players on minute restrictions still coming back from the injuries they did suffer in yesterday's episode and off the back of that. And also, a couple of players still on a heavy workload. So a couple of changes here to our usual team as well as what you would have seen in that Celtic game. But overall, we do look here a little bit stronger, so I'm quite hopeful that we can back up that win against Celtic as well as that good result in the derby with a win over fellow German opposition. Hopefully can as well, seeing as it's not one of the other big three, of course, in Bayern, Dortmund or Leipzig. But of course, Leipzig not in this competition this season. It's Frankfurt alongside us. Hopefully can pick up a result here off the back of Bayern taking some points off them there with a win at this venue. Now, of course, a couple of changes to our usual first choice 11. Thankfully, Ballerini's back there at right back, but Lazar's there at right wing because Walden is still a little bit injury prone on a minute restriction. But of course, Lazar should actually be our first choice right winger. But of course, Walden, homegrown club, don't want to upset him. Pretty much the same situation as the reason that we didn't sign Lenny Euro. We could replace Ruslan with him. So that's one change that we've made for this game. Also, Kamara and Steele Lucchini on a heavy workload. And as well as that, we've still got LaRosa in there in ball wing midfield. Jimenez is on the bench, but also on a minute restriction. So a couple of changes there to our usual best 11. But to be fair, not too many considering just how bad things were off the back of yesterday's episode. Thankfully, that extra week off the back of that Celtic game, it should help us out here in this big German clash away from home. To be fair, I say it's a big German clash. Probably if Dortmund and Bayern play each other, that's going to be a bigger one in the Champions League this season. But off the back of the first match day, we both picked up wins. Let's hope that we maybe can get the edge here over this Eintracht Frankfurt team. They've got an early free kick, but to be fair, that header did look like it was relatively safely over the bar. So an early free kick there. Thankfully, Frankfurt can't quite make the most of that one. Let's hopefully now start to get on the front foot. To be fair, the way that Frankfurt have been going early this season, I think a draw might not be the worst result here, but Frankfurt, on paper, did kind of look like one of the weaker teams that would get in the Champions League this season. Now we are on the attack. Away, Dawn there took on the shot, but a decent save there, I think that was, from the Frankfurt goalkeeper. So we're still locked up here at 0, all a decent chance now to both teams go. Looking there for Ruslan at the near post, can't quite find him. Real Sociedad, they dropped points on the opening match day and are now getting beaten by Bayern Munich. So maybe not the worst idea that we stayed here at Jahn Regensburg, even ignoring that whole wage issue that we did have with those contract negotiations with those guys. But so far, this game has been pretty quiet at the half-hour mark. Ballerini has picked up a yellow card. To be fair, that might not be the worst thing. Means that we take him off at halftime, coming back from his injury in that Dortmund game. But this first half so far has been very quiet as we make our way now towards a couple of minutes of extra time. It's going to be 2. That's quick, that's what she said. It's all locked up here at 0 all. Stats-wise, though, we're the team with shots on targets. Hopefully can continue this in the second half. Alex Jimenez is on a little bit of a heavy workload, but has to come on here for a yellow-carded Ballerini. As I said, coming back from injury might not be the worst thing to take him off there at halftime to make sure he doesn't pick up yet another injury. And we'll tell the guys they're not doing too badly. Might have a little bit of a go here at our playmakers and our attacker in Rene Muller. We're starting him for this game again, going just a little bit fairly, albeit a 6.7, not quite as bad as our wingers so far in this game. And also Uwe Dawn only on a 6.5, now a 6.4. So it's our wide players here so far who are disappointing away from home at Frankfurt, but thankfully get on the ball here from this first highlight of the second half. Go back there to Batada, who plays it back out there to Cuervo. Now Ruslan will play that ball forward to Lazar. Some nice short passing might be a chance for us here to get on the attack. Hawkera will find Dawn there in space down our left-hand side. Yet again pulls that one across the face of goal for Rene Muller. It's a sitter. He can't put it away. So unfortunately our strikers here are letting us down. I say strikers, all our attackers, who Anadama Kamara, they're all having absolute shockers. And now that's a poor free kick there from Ruslan, and it's Eintracht Frankfurt who are on the attack. Larson there on a little bit of an orange injury. Pulls that one back there to Dale, and unfortunately Hawkera has brought him down, and I think that's just inside the box. So unfortunately, big chance for us there down the other end to go 1-0 up. Before we have this penalty, because it is going to be one, we'll make some subs. Let's bring on here Rivera for Muller, take off Fernandez for Alanis, and bring on Walden for Lazar, because those attackers have been poor so far. We're getting chances. Our XG actually is pretty high, but unfortunately haven't made the most of it. And now a chance here for Frankfurt to take a 1-0 lead, and this would be a little bit of a poor result in the Champions League, and they do put that one away. Batada did go the right way, but too much power on that one from Kan Uzun, who makes it 1-0 Frankfurt. So unfortunately, we go down there thanks that penalty really should have been 1-0 down the other end. If Muller could finish his dinner, unfortunately, didn't like the taste there of a German meal in Frankfurt, probably would prefer being back in Portugal, some tapas and whatnot. Now down the other end, and Walden with a shot in that one, gets blocked quite well or safe, couldn't quite tell, but some big chances now at close range, and we can't take them. Look at that XG, only 2 shots on target, now free, 2.35 XG. How are we behind? We gave away a penalty, but still, that is annoying. Now, La Rosa on a red hat of 6.5, so a chance for us here to bring Quim Jimenez back from his injury off the bench with our final sub. And maybe even a little bit further on, we might go to a bit of a higher tempo or even switch to the 4-3-3 and see if that might work, as we saw on the analyst report. Now's the time for us here, go a little bit more up tempo with only 10 minutes left. We'll chuck Alanis here onto attack as that inside forward down our left-hand side and see if we can hopefully grab an equaliser, because stats-wise, we definitely deserve it, but unfortunately, not quite happening with the 4-2-3-1. So late on here, we're going to go with a pretty attacking 4-3-3 and just see if that might do something. We'll go full up high tempo here and be more expressive, get our goalkeeper to distribute quickly, and we'll see if that might work here. Don't want to go super attacking because we're only a goal down, but let's see if the 4-3-3 might get something going late. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like that will be the case. And somehow, we've lost that one away from home, which on paper isn't a woeful result. Eintracht Frankfurt had started the season off pretty well before that Bayern game, but really some big chances there that we didn't take before giving away that penalty, which Jazuna did put away. We then had another good one through Lewis Walden. His shot got blocked, so unfortunately get let down there a little bit by our wide players as well as our attackers in that game. Really one that we should have got something out of, so it does mean it's our first loss in the Champions League this season, annoyingly, to a German team who aren't Bayern or even Dortmund. That's a bit of a poor result, even though Frankfurt have been going quite well. Thankfully, Real Sociedad are sucking big time, so I think I'm quite justified in staying here at Jahn Regensburg so far based on Champions League performance, but that's a little bit there of a poor result. Thankfully, we still sit inside of a qualifying spot off the back of our win against Celtic, but we suffered defeat there, giving away a penalty, 1-0 loss at Eintracht Frankfurt. So unfortunately suffer our first defeat of the season. Their second up in today's episode and also in the Champions League, which probably is a bit more of a concern than what it would have been if we lost to those guys in the Bundesliga, seeing as we started the season off so well in that competition. Here's an update on what things do look like now that the Wednesday games, they have been completed still. And not too bad. A spot our goal differential is not too horrible. But yeah, a bit disappointing there that we've lost to Eintracht Frankfurt, especially considering the stats. Hopefully can get back on track in our next couple of games in the Champions League, albeit I say that, not too sure, because next up, we've got good old Real Madrid. Thankfully, it's at the Jahn Regensburg, but that's going to be pretty tough against one of the better teams from over in Spain. But that will do it for today's episode, going very well in the Bundesliga and won our first Champions League game against Celtic. But then a bit disappointing there, we get beaten away by Eintracht Frankfurt. If you enjoyed that one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll definitely include that Real Madrid game. Either side of that, two teams going quite well in the Bundesliga. Schalke in 4th and Cologne, who are hot on our heels in 2nd spot. So I dare say at the moment it might be Real Madrid followed up there by Cologne in the Bundesliga, but we'll see how things go. We could be coming back as well for Schalke if they outdo Cologne in between now and then. But until tomorrow for some Champions League and Bundesliga action yet again, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.